These are the 10 heroes you need to use inside Marvel Rivals to make sure you get the most wins. These heroes are going to span across the Strategist, Vanguard and Duelist categories to let you know which ones you should be using. We're also going to give you the counters to these heroes as well, so you know which other heroes to stay away from when you're using these top 10. Kicking us off in the Vanguard category, we have Doctor Strange. Now Doctor Strange has a 21.69% pick rate, but also a 51.73% win rate. So not only is he getting picked really high, he's also getting a lot of wins at the same time. Now what's really good about Doctor Strange is that he provides a lot of protection for your team, and he provides a lot of survivability for yourself. And even though he has been nerfed with this latest update, he's still an extremely solid choice when it comes to Vanguards within Marvel Rivals. The only heroes you need to try and stay away from are heroes like Wolverine and Magic. These kind of heroes obviously penetrate your shield because it only blocks projectiles, and not only that, they're mainly designed to take out tanks, so these are the heroes that you want to try and avoid during a match. Other than that, when it comes to frontline support and even in some cases solo tanking, Doctor Strange is the best in the game. Next up we have Penny Parker. Now Penny Parker has a 17.02% pick rate and a 51.63% win rate, which again is highly picked and getting a lot of wins at the same time. And one thing that makes her very different to heroes like Doctor Strange is that she actually is based around her kit and the traps she can set for enemy players. It's all about her mines and how you get kills on dive heroes, and this is one of the best anti-dive tanks in the entire game. Not only can she anti-dive DPS heroes, but also other tanks. But she's probably the only Vanguard you can use for those kind of situations. So like I said, if you want a good anti-dive composition, then Penny Parker has to go in there. The only heroes you do need to watch out for though are Storm and Iron Man, and even now the Human Torch. All of these are flying characters, and other than stunning them at a long range, your mines and your traps are not going to work on these heroes because they are flying heroes and they're going to stay in the air. Not only that, they could easily take you out because you're a bigger target than some DPS heroes. Finally, when it comes to the Vanguards, we've got Magneto, and he's the best frontline survivability boss in this game. He provides so much survivability to your team, but his pick rate has dropped a bit since the start of Season 1, down to 13.25%. And his win rate has also dropped slightly as well at 48.88%. But like I said, he's still an amazing choice, and when you do see other characters pick Magneto, you know you're in for a good game because you're going to have that defense right up on your front line, and he can stay there for a long period of time as well, and he's not going to be moved unless you're coming up against his hard counters like Wolverine and the Winter Soldier. So not only can they displace you from your front line, but also they can penetrate past your shields as well. So that's something you will need to keep in mind when using Magneto. But one thing you can definitely do now as a super strong counter is output so much more damage. His primary attack now outputs so much damage that you can actually 3-shot the 250 HP heroes in this game. That's not even to mention that Magneto's ultimate is one of the best in the entire game. Not only does it work defensively, but also works extremely powerful offensively as well, especially if you absorb as much damage as possible. Picking off the Strategist category now, we have Cloak and Dagger with a 29.69% pick rate and a 50% win rate. Now the win rate is across all ranks, but the pick rate stands out because it's the #1 most picked hero in the entire game, and for good reason. Not only does Dagger output some of the easiest healing in the game, it's also some of the highest healing in the game when you know how to use the abilities correctly. And then also Cloak outputs a good amount of damage for not having to aim whatsoever with this hero. So across console and PC, this is one of the easiest heroes to use when it comes to outputting heals to your team. When it comes to hard counters to this hero, it's going to be Doctor Strange and Magneto. Now this is only going to be a hard counter for Cloak in particular, because that is how the damage is output and their shields basically block you from doing damage to them. The one thing you do need to master with Cloak and Dagger is when to switch to and from each of these heroes. Now 90% of the time you want to be in Dagger form, supplying heals to your team, but I do also want to mention that the ultimate for Cloak and Dagger is one of the best in the game. Even still, it got nerfed, is not as super overpowered as it was before, but it's still one of the best healing ultimates within the game and one of the easiest ones to use. Next up, we have Cloak and Dagger's tag team partner, and that is the Invisible Woman. The Invisible Woman's pick rate is 19.22%, which is still extremely high, and also her win rate is 48.80%. Now, when it comes to the Invisible Woman, she does not output the maximum amount of healing you can get. There's obviously better healers in this game, but what she does do well is healing flying heroes. Now, if you've got a lot of Iron Mans or Human Torches or Storms on your team, healing with your shield for flying heroes is one of the easiest things to do when it comes to the Invisible Woman. She's the best at healing those flying heroes. Now, she can still output a good amount of healing to the team as well, and not to mention her ultimate is one of the more powerful ones within the game as well. When it comes to hard counters against the Invisible Woman, you're mainly looking out for heroes like Psylocke and Magic, and kind of mainly any of the melee style heroes, and the reason for that is because the hitbox in this game is quite big, so even if you're in the back line and you're getting dived on, that is just something you need to keep in mind of. Even though you do your invisible jump and try to escape, sometimes you still can get caught with those melee attacks, and that removes your invisibility. Finally, for the strategist category, we have Rocket, and when it comes to Rocket, his pick rate has went up to 14.19%, and his win rate has also went up to 54.67%. Now, this win rate is slightly skewed because he is mainly used most of the time as a triple support, and the triple support meta is still relatively strong and prominent in this game at the moment, so that is something I do want to mention. However, if you are playing relatively passively with both of your healers, then you can run a double support, with Rocket being one of the healers in this game. And I still think he is a solid choice because he does output a decent amount of damage, and he offers other buffs to the team like reviving teammates and also damage buffs as well. So he's not just a healer, he's actually used for a lot more than that. When it comes to hard counters against Rocket, you're mainly looking out for Scarlet Witch and Cloak, or any enemies that kind of have auto aim essentially, and that's because not only is your hitbox really small, your movement with Rocket with his jetpacks is really good as well, so it makes you really hard to hit and die as well, so his survivability is actually pretty strong if you know how to use them correctly. Kicking off the Duelist section, we have Storm. Now, her pick rate is relatively low at 5.04%, but her win rate is extremely high at 57.24%. Now, what this means is a lot of the higher skill players are picking Storm for the most part and getting a lot of wins, but that's not to say that she's not a good hero in this game. She's definitely a solid choice for a flying hero, and I think she is the best choice for flying heroes in this game at the moment. Even though she got her slight nerf, she does still offer a massive damage buff to teammates, and also she's one of the best flying heroes at taking out other flying heroes, if that makes any sort of sense. When it comes to counters against Storm, you're looking out for heroes like Hela and Hawkeye. Any heroes that can snipe you out of the sky are going to be quite annoying to Storm, of course, and that is something you do need to watch out for. But I do also want to mention that her ultimate is basically one of the best in the game, and if you pair it with a Human Torch ultimate, it's actually so broken at the moment. So next up, we have Magic, who's one of the best flank style heroes in this entire game, and the pick rate is 5.43%, so relatively low again, but the win rate is extremely high at 56.29%. Now, Magic is not extremely difficult to use whatsoever. Once you've mastered her teleport, then that is you pretty much halfway there on flanking the enemy team. Now, she is the best at outputting damage, but not only that, she's really good at surviving within the backline as well because of her teleport ability and the ability to gain additional shields after every damage hit that she does. So she's one of the best at staying in that enemy backline for long periods of time, outputting so much damage. Now, the only counters you need to look out for are someone like a Namor or a Penny Parker, or even a Moon Knight with his unks. Anyone that can set up traps for Magic is the one that's going to be able to kill her. But other than that, if you don't see any of those heroes in the enemy team composition whatsoever, then Magic is going to have an absolute field day against that team. If you're a lone wolf and you like to play solo in this game, then Magic is one of the only heroes that allows you to do that, and that is why I highly recommend trying her out. Speaking of wolves, we've got the White Wolf, the Winter Soldier. Now, the Winter Soldier is absolutely broken right now as of the Season 1.5 update. Not only is his pick rate 9.25%, but we've got a 0.17% win rate with the Winter Soldier at the moment. Now, how cool would a White Wolf skin be on the Winter Soldier? I think that would be absolutely insane. But other than that, when it comes to actually using his kit, he's one of the best tank busters in the game. He's also a good range DPS hero. He could pretty much do it all, and that is what makes him insanely broken. Not to mention his ultimate resets after every kill, and you don't even need to get that kill. Your teammates can finish off the enemy player and you can still get a reset on your ultimate, and that is how ridiculously good the Winter Soldier is at the moment. And his pick rate is going up for very good reason. Now let's talk about some heroes that can counter the Winter Soldier, and that is heroes like the Invisible Woman and Luna Snow, where basically they're able to freeze him in place and finish him off, and again CC him with some of their abilities. And that is the main thing that you're trying to do with the Winter Soldier, is basically freeze him in place and get a quick finish on him, because you're not going to be able to output the same amount of damage as he does. Now, when it comes to outputting damage with the Winter Soldier, you can pretty much kill any hero in this entire game, whether it be tanks, whether it be other DPS, whether it be strategists. It doesn't really matter. You're going to be able to kill pretty much anything. Finally, when it comes to duelists in this game, we have Mr. Fantastic with a 4.90% pick rate and a 53.33% win rate. Now that win rate is pretty strong for this hero, and why is it that high? And that is because his survivability is one of the best in this game when it comes to duelist characters within Marvel Rivals. Now he's able to give himself so much shields. He's got his kind of Vanguard form where he can turn into a tank for a small portion of the game, and then he can also deflect damage with one of his abilities as well, so he's going to stay in the fight for extremely long periods of time. Not to mention that his melee attack, or his primary attack, is one of the easiest abilities to use in this game. You can basically just swipe it across your screen and deal damage to multiple enemies at once. I think people underestimate the power of that and how much damage you can actually do at the same time to multiple enemies, and I think that's what makes him extremely powerful when people know how to use his kit correctly. Now, as I mentioned, Mr. Fantastic has tons of survivability, but how do we deal with him in terms of counters? Well, the heroes you need to be looking out for are heroes like the Punisher and Squirrel Girl, because even though you can tank a solid amount of damage with Mr. Fantastic, you cannot tank that much damage that these type of heroes output, because you will just get absolutely shredded. And when it comes to his ultimate now, it's actually pretty strong with the extra enhanced damage buff that we got in the season 1.5 update, so I do think he is a solid choice. So there we have it. Those are the 10 heroes you need to use in Marvel Rivals to get more wins. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.